So for today's webinar, we'll be going over the GDS3710 and doing a technical training. So we'll start with a product overview to refresh everyone on the specs and details of the GDS3710. We will then go into the GDS Manager tool and also a installation overview. From here, we'll go into a technical training where our engineer Abdel will assist us, and we'll go through the web UI. He'll also show us some the device live and do a full technical training for everyone. At the end, sit tight, we'll have time for a live question and answer session. Both us from Grandstream will be here as well as Youleidy from VoIP Supply. So keep your questions in mind and we'll be sure to address them during the Q&A. Now, about the GDS3710, this product is brand new to Grandstream, came out at the end of March 2017. It is a hemispheric IP video door system that provides 180-degree wall-to-wall coverage. It serves as both a high-definition IP surveillance camera as well as an IP intercom and facility access system. It integrates seamlessly with Grandstream devices, including our IP phones, our surveillance products, our video phones, and the like, to provide a complete end-to-end solution for access control, video and audio intercom, and security recording. So for the technical highlights, the GDS3710 is a SIP product, and because of SIP, of course, it is going to be universally compatible with a wide variety of SIP products, including IP video phones, IP phones, as well as mobile phones. It has built-in capacitive touch keys and RFID, so that's pad you see on the right-hand side, that is both touch keys and the RFID reader. The RFID reader is 125 kilohertz. And then it also has a built-in microphone with a 1.5 meter range and also a built-in loudspeaker with 3 meter range. It does feature full duplex audio with advanced AEC background noise suppression. It's important to note that because this is both an indoor and outdoor device, the background noise suppression will be sure to make sure the audio comes through clearly, even if you've got something like street noise or noise from a busy hallway outside your building. Either way, the audio will come through clearly. It also supports PoE and a 12-volt connection, so you can choose either options during your installation. It also features 2 alarm inputs and 2 alarm outputs, as well as RS-485 and a Wagon input and output. As for the alarms, it offers hostage code alarm, tamper alarm, as well as multi-key input error alarm. Now, when it comes to the installation environment where the GDS3710 is suitable, it can be installed both in-wall or surface-mounted. If you choose in-wall, there are separate accessories that would be purchased for that. The image you see on the left-hand side is what the in-wall mount looks like, and the right-hand side is how the product comes, and that would be a surface mount. It is also indoor-outdoor, features IPv66 waterproof, and is also IK09 vandal resistant, so you do not have to worry about where this will be installed. The operating temperatures are also very extreme. You either can go down to negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and can also handle extreme humidity from 10 to 90% and is non-condensing. So even people in some of the hottest climates within the United States can use this, as well as those up north who, like us, and of course VoIP Supply up there in Buffalo, might get a little colder. Now, the Hemispheric View is a really defining feature of the GDS3710. This can provide you a 180-degree wide by 150-degree high viewpoint. So it gives you a really, really wide-angle view. Also features a 2-megapixel imaging sensor and H.264 high profile. The GDS3710 is also available to do 4 concurrent video streams. You can do 1080p recording, for example, to an NVR, 720p video stream to something like a PC or a video phone, VGA to mobile apps, and also it can support 720p still image capturing, which we'll go over shortly. Also features wide dynamic range for a variety of lit environments, and also built-in white LEDs for face illumination, as well as lens distortion correction for that wide-angle view. It is important to note this is not infrared, so you would have to have external lighting if you would like a larger area to be lit in a darker environment. And here's just a quick example of the hemispheric view versus the lens distortion correction. So on the left-hand side, you can see, that full hemispheric view and how far that really does reach. But of course, there is a bit of distortion in the way that the image will look. You have the option to use a lens distortion correction if you would prefer, and you can choose these based on your deployment scenario and the viewpoint you need. Now, for facility access and security monitoring, when it comes to intercom, there's a built-in digital microphone with up to 1.5 meter range, as well as built-in loudspeaker with up to 3 meter range. It is important to note that this is full duplex audio, so it is not a walkie-talkie, and also that background noise suppression, so that way you can have this installed in noisy environments without having to worry about any type of interference. The alarm inputs and outputs are, of course, incredibly important. So you've got 2 alarm inputs for devices such as door sensors, and then you have 2 alarm outputs for things like electric locks, light switches, and the like. Now, for access options, there's a wide variety of ways that you can configure the GDS3710 when it comes to allowing independent access. So that would just be me coming into the office in the morning. You can issue RFID cards or fobs, standard 125 gigahertz, and then you've got the custom numeric codes, which you can set up however you need to. You can also set up guest codes which have specific time settings. Let's say you have a guest code that's open 9 to 5. After 5 p.m., that guest code will no longer allow anyone access into the building. If you need added protection, you can do dual authentication with both RFID and a code combination. So you need to have both present in order to allow access into the building. Now, when it comes to controlled access or someone allowing somebody else access to the facility, you can have the Ring doorbell button. You can see the doorbell right there on the hardware. You can also have them dial an extension, as well as set up motion detection. So if something is moving in the set field of view, you can have an automatic call go to whether it's a security department, admin, whoever, in order to see who's there and open the door. So when it comes to creating a full solution for facility access and IP surveillance, we've made sure that the GDS3710 can integrate seamlessly with pretty much any Grandstream product that you would need in this type of scenario. So you can integrate the GDS3710 with our GXV series of video phones. This will allow when the motion detection feature is triggered, it can have the video phone store live video feeds. You can also open and close the door directly through the phone with or without a security code. This can also store snapshots rather than live video if you prefer. And of course, you can watch live video feeds. So if a call comes in, you can actually watch the live video feed, or you can call the GDS3710 independently just to see what is in front of it. And of course, it does feature or support the intercom functionality. Now, when it comes to the GXP2100 series, there's a lot of features that integrate here as well. So you can do an open-closed door feature. So when the particular GXP phone is rung and is alerting you that someone is in front of the GDS, you have the ability to open and close the door with or without a code. It can also store snapshots, and uniquely, it can watch live video feeds. Now, please note that the GXP2100 series are not video phones. What we have done is created a feature that allows you to see basically a slightly lower resolution, slightly lower speed video, but it is a live video. So we'll show that to you in just a few slides. And then, of course, it does support the intercom functionality. And lastly, it does integrate with the GXP1600, 1700s, and our DEC phones for intercom functionality only. And it's also important to note that you can use the GDS3710 with other SIP products. It does not only have to be Grandstream, but of course with Grandstream that provides you with easier setup and management with all the products from one particular provider. And here is a very quick example of the one-touch entry feature using the GXV3275. You can also use this on the GXV3240. So when a call comes in, this is what will show up on the phone screen. On the left-hand side, you see that open door button. You click it and you open it. If you'd like, you can also click the door and have it require to put in a security code in order to complete the process. And here's just a very quick example of how the live video stream works on the GXP2100 phone. if you are interested in getting this feature set up, reach out to our support team, and they have a firmware version they can provide you with in order to use this feature. So the GXP2100 series can store snapshots, but also watch a live video feed, and if you can see on that image there, you can see a little quick access key for the open door feature. And of course, the GDS3710 integrates with our series of network video recorders, the GVR3552 and GVR3550. These support both FHD or HD recording quality. It's up to you. You can both record and store live video and audio feeds, and depending on your storage size, you can store up to 16 terabytes of recording. Now, when it comes to the GDS management utility software, if you guys are not familiar with what this is a free software for the GDS3710 that you can download directly from Grandstream.com. What this essentially does is provide RFID card management and reports for door entrance and attendance management. So you can download this directly from the website, and it is a fantastic tool to make sure that you can not only manage everyone who can access the building and all the cards and codes that you may assign, but you can also manage multiple GDS3710s all in one place using GDS Manager. So when it comes to the server configuration, I think I'm going to pass it on to Abdel if you'd like to cover just the next couple slides on the GDS Manager, and then we'll kick off as we get a little more technical stuff.
Well, thank you very much, Dorothy. So this is pretty much a screenshot of the GDS Manager, and I'm going to show you during the technical part about how you can use it. The GDS Manager is a tool that you can download from the Grandstream website. It's a package that includes the GDS Manager server and also the GDS Manager tool. The GDS Manager server is just the second slide to the right. This one you just run it. You don't have to configure anything on that tool. Then you just open the GDS Manager so you can start scanning your network and detecting the other devices on your network. So this is just an example. For example, if you have multiple GDS in your network, you can just run the search option in the GDS Manager to detect all the GDS intercom or door systems in your network, and then it will add them automatically, so this way you can manage them from one interface instead of logging to different web GUI interfaces of each GDS Manager. And I'm still gonna, when I finish doing the GUI interface of the GDS3710, I'm going to jump into the GDS Manager so I can give you just a brief technical explanation about it. Yeah, you can use also GDS Manager, so you can scan the cards from the GDS Manager, but there's another device that you need to purchase separately that you can connect to your computer. So when you have multiple RFIDs, instead of you going to the GDS Manager, to the GDS device and scanning those cards, you can use the GDS Manager and use that little device that you connect to your computer. So every time you scan those RFID cards, they're going to populate in the GDS Manager so that you can manage them from here. You can access each card and assign it, for example, a specific PIN number for each user that they can use to unlock the GDS or the door striker. There's also the log, system log on the GDS Manager that gives you information about who logged into the GDS, what changes were made. There's also a system log that gives you information about which person unlocked the door and what PIN number was used and which user and what time. This is also a screenshot about the captures, and I'm going to show you this when we talk about the GDS Manager. I'm going to show you how you can take snapshots from the GDS so you can store them on either a TFTP server, or you can simply use your computer so you can store those snapshots.
Thank you very much, Abdel. We'll go quickly into some brief information on how the physical installation of the hardware would go, and then we'll, shortly after this, we'll pass it back over to Abdel for the technical training portion. Now, there are two ways to install the GDS3710. You can wall surface mount it, which is the default way that it comes shipped to you, or you can also do an in-wall mount with a separate accessory that you can purchase. Now, also, when it comes to the GDS3710, there are multiple ways that you can deploy this. Of course, it is not one fits, it's not one device for one scenario. You can be really flexible with the way that this is set up, given that it is a SIP device. So the GDS3710 can have something like a more simple deployment with just using a PoE switch and having it communicate via the IP address, and you don't need to have an IP PBX or a service provider of any type in between. So this is just a quick example of what this would look like using a PoE switch as your way to connect the GDS to your IP phones. Now here we have a little bit more of a complex diagram, but this is where you would kind of see a fully integrated solution. Now this is probably going to be more for office buildings and places that already have a well built out IP communication solution, or perhaps one that you're building from scratch. So you would have the GDS3710, of course, connected to its PoE switch, and you can have it connected back through an IP PBX, in this case our UCM 6200 or 6510. This would allow you to route the calls from the GDS. Let's say someone hits a button and it calls an extension, that's routed through your IP PBX and pushed forward to your IP phone. Additionally, your mobile phones can connect this way as well. Your GDS3710 can also can be connected to an NVR in order to record both audio and video, and you can of course connect it to both alarm-in devices such as infrared sensors or door or window sensors, as well as alarm-out, which would be devices such as an electric door strike, lighting control, or a siren. And then, of course, you would also connect GDS Manager here in order to be able to control everything that the GDS has to do with all in one place. And you can also control many GDS3710s through GDS Manager and connect them back in through a deployment scenario similar to this. So now I'm going to pass it back over to Abdel, and he will go over a technical training both through the web user interface as well as some live demonstrations of the device itself.
So for now, I'm just going to show you the web interface of the GDS device. The first thing that you need to do is get the IP address, of course, of the GDS intercom system, and then just type it in. For example, the IP address of my GDS is 192.168.22.250. If you cannot, for example, detect the IP address of your GDS, you can use one of the Grandstream search tools that you can download for the Grandstream website. So just go to support and then click on tools. Then it's going to take you to this page. Then you can download the GS search. This tool is very helpful in case you have like multiple GS devices in your network. It's going to detect them, then it's going to provide you with their IP addresses. So in our case, I'm going to use mine, which is 192.168.22.250. The credentials by default is admin to log in. So when you log in for the first time, it gives you this live view page. And I would like to mention something about the live view page. If you are using, you notice that I'm not using Firefox or Chrome, because in the latest versions of Firefox and Chrome, they disabled that option that they called NPA API, which does not allow video streaming on the web browser. So I'm using a different web browser here. So when you get to the live view, just click on play, then it's going to start streaming the video from the GDS device. And then it gives you two options, some icons here, like 1, 2, 3, this is for the stream. For example, I'm using stream 1. Different stream, they have different profiles. For example, the stream 1, if you notice between stream 1 and stream 3, you will notice that stream 1 is clearer than stream 3, which uses, of course, less resolution. It's all about the resolution, and I'm going to show you these resolutions when we come to the video and audio settings. You can also increase the size or adjust the size of the video stream. You can also play the audio or stop the audio. You can take captures. And those captures, the system is going to store them in your computer. and you can tell the GDS where to store those captures and the recordings just by clicking on this icon. For example, I'm storing all my recordings and captures at the C drive, and then you can browse and choose which folder. You can create a new one, or you can use an old folder where you can store all those captures. So for example, if I take captures, or if I start recording, then I just stop it. I can access those recordings just from going to the C, and I'm using the record folder. You see it gives you two folders. The capture, this is for the captures that we took, and normal are for the videos that we used. You can actually open the video from here and you can play it. So you have a lot of options. You can use it that way, or you can use an FTP server, and then you can point all the recordings to a different device. You can use it, for example, with the GVR, as Dorothy already mentioned. So when you get this device, the first thing you want to do, of course, is register the GDS device to an IP PBX. And to do that, you just need to go to the SIP settings, and it's going to give you this page. Then you give it an extension from an IP PBX. For example, I assigned the GDS extension 1011 from the IP PBX 192.168.22.174, and just include the basic setting, SIP setting that you put for any SIP endpoint. Then you have some advanced SIP settings right here. I'm just going to talk about one of them, which is this one, enable direct IP call. In case you are using a peer-to-peer connection, which means you are using the GDS device with a video phone and you don't have an IP PBX, for that scenario, you must have that one checked, which means just leave it by default. Do not uncheck it. If you uncheck it, the peer-to-peer connection is not going to work. Then you have the whitelist. The whitelist, you just include if you leave it by default, that means any extension or anyone can call the GDS. But if you want to restrict the people who can call to the GDS so they can unlock the door, you can just enable that one, and you start adding those SIP extensions. For example, if my SIP extension is 1002, and this is the only extension that I want to allow it, for example, to make calls into the GDS to unlock the door, I can just add this extension and make sure I enable the white number list. So after we assign a SIP extension to the device, then we can go back to the door system settings, so we can discuss those features and options that you have on this page. We can just talk briefly about these options. Like for example, the unlocking latency is 0. That means once you press the button to unlock the door, it's going to unlock immediately. If you want to give it 2 seconds, you can just put 2 seconds in there. Then you have the unlock hold time. This is the time when you unlock the door or the striker will remain unlocked for 5 seconds. If you want to increase it, just adjust the values. You can increase, decrease. If you want to make it 10 seconds, you can make it 10 seconds. Then you have the option, the swipe cards intervals, which is 300 milliseconds by default. That means you can swipe up to 3 cards per second. Then you have also this option, which is capture image on unlock. So every time someone unlocks the door, the GDS is going to capture a snapshot of that person. And those snapshots, they're going to be stored in your FTP server that you configure under the email and FTP settings page. So right here, this is basically what you do. You configure the GDS to make calls and then receive calls, and the PIN numbers, and what type of security you want to apply to the GDS to open and to lock or unlock the door. For the call mode, you have 2 options. You can use the SIP number or you can use the virtual number. The SIP number, for example, I am using the 1000 range for my SIP extensions, and the GDS has extension 1011. Just by typing from the keypad, just entering or dialing or typing the extension number, I can call from the GDS to any other device. This is one option. If you want to make, for example, the virtual number, that's also practical. So in a scenario, for example, if you have a building with many apartments, and the apartments, they have their own numbers, you can actually use the virtual number. So instead of people coming and remembering the extension or the SIP extension for that apartment, they can just enter the apartment number, which is going to match the virtual number. And virtual numbers, we configure them under the card management. I'm going to stop there so I can show you how you can enter the virtual numbers. So for our case, let's just keep it as a virtual number. And then the doorbell mode. The GDS device, of course, has the doorbell button, and you can configure it with 3 modes. For example, you can configure it to call doorbell number. That means if you choose that mode, every time you press the doorbell button on the GDS, it's going to call extension 1012. If you have, for example, my PPBX that has the capability to make outbound calls, you can actually include your cell phone number. And then the GDS will send the call to the PBX, and the PBX can call, for example, your cell phone, and then you can unlock the cell phone, the GDS door from your cell phone. So for now, I'm just going to leave it as SIP extension. Then you have the other option, the control doorbell. And for that scenario, you need to use the output connector in the back of the GDS. In case you have, for example, a doorbell, people, once they press the doorbell button, if you have another doorbell connected to the GDS, that doorbell actually is gonna play. Or you can do both of them. So every time someone goes in, it's gonna call that extension, then it's gonna play the doorbell. For the remote pin to open the door, this is the DTMF numbers that you punch in to unlock the door. You can enter any number, this is up to you. And then you have the local pin type. You have 3 options. You can use a unified pin. For the scenario, for example, you have one family and all of them, they use the same pin number. You can use that case. Just choose unified pin number and then enter the pin number that you want to use to unlock the door, which means when you arrive to the GDS, you're just going to need to type in this pin number to unlock the door. Or you can use the private card pin. When you choose that mode, that type, it gives you 2 options. You can use just by scanning your RFID card, then the door is going to unlock, or you can use the combination of your virtual number and then the private door password to unlock the door. Or you can add more security by choosing the type card and private pin, which means you need to scan the card, then enter the pin number, which is more secure than the previous 2 options. And then you have that option, enable DTMF open door. This is a nice feature. It's available right now on the GXV phones, and if you have the GS Wave, it's also available just by checking that option. When someone calls you from GDS, a new icon is going to show up during the active call. Just by pressing the button, it's going to unlock the door by using whatever PIN number you have configured on the GDS device. In case also you have guests that needs to use the GDS device and you want to assign them, for example, temporary password, you can enable the guest PIN, assign them give them a PIN number, and you can also give them a schedule from what day to what day they can use that PIN number. As I mentioned, since the GDS uses RFID cards, you have 2 options. You can buy a separate Grandstream device that we use to scan devices so they can be added to the GDS system, or you can use the GDS itself to scan cards. So when you enable the card issuing mode, what's going to happen, and you save and apply, the GDS is going to start blinking lights. That means it is in a scanning mode. So every time you scan a card, all that information will be populated in the card management page. So that makes it easy. So if you have like few, probably 10 cards or something, you can just scan them using the GDS, and then when you're done, just make sure you come back and you uncheck that one, so you can use the RFID cards to open, to unlock and lock the doors. These are just for the lights on the GDS. The GDS, of course, the DTMF, when you press them, they make some kind of sound. If you want to mute them, you can just choose mute. This is up to you. Then you have the options in case you're using a Wigan device with the GDS. You can just check those options. So the default time on the GDS is 10 minutes. So if you stay on the same page for 10 minutes, it's just going to log you out. So this is the page for the card management. For example, I have one user here, so I'm just going to show you quickly. Pretty much you can add them manually, which means you can go here and add users, then you start entering the information. Or you can use the RFID card and you can scan them on the GDS, then all that information will be populated in this page. What you need to do, just come here and choose the username, so each name can match the RFID card. Then you can assign them the virtual number. For example, if Steve lives in apartment 305, you can just simply give him the virtual number 305. So when people, they just come to the door and then they dial 305, it's going to ring his extension in his house. And you just enter the extension. So every time they dial 305, it's going to call extension 1000. You can also include a cell phone number. So it doesn't have to be the extension. You can actually include a cell phone number. Just make sure you enable and then save and apply. Yeah, and let me mention something also. For example, for Steve right here, his password to unlock the door, let's say, is 999. If you want to unlock the door, if Steve comes to the GDS and he wants to unlock the door, he needs to dial star 305 star and then the password. So it's going to be similar to this, like star, his virtual number is 305, and then star, the PIN number to unlock the door is 999, and then the pound key. So this is the key combination that he needs to enter to unlock the door. So moving forward, the system settings. These are just basic settings that you can use, for example, to change the date, the time zone, network settings. By default, DHCP is enabled. If you are using static, you can just check static and then enter the information. And one information, in case you, for example, you are deploying the GDS in an environment that doesn't have a router, and it doesn't have a DHCP server to assign IPs to the devices, you can actually log into the GDS web interface just by using the Ethernet cable coming from the GDS, plug it in your Ethernet port in your computer, and then you can access the web interface just by typing the IP address 192.168.1.168. So when there is no DHCP, no router to give an IP address to the GDS by default is using this IP, 192.168.1.168. However, if you want to be able to log into the GDS, you need to change your network settings temporarily on your computer. For example, if you can just come here to your Ethernet port, Ethernet card, then choose IPv4, and then choose the static IP, and then assign your computer an IP in the same subnet as the GDS. You can give it any number from 1 to 255. For example, you can give it 100 and then assign it the static IP and just leave the gateway blank. So just by configuring a static IP address on your computer, you will be able to log in to your GDS. This is, again, in case you don't have a DHCP server in your environment. This is the access settings. So by default, this one is using 5. In case you want to remain logged in for a longer time, you can increase this value, for example, to 35 minutes. This is the port number if you want to use SSH or disable SSH. That's up to you. Then you have the user management in case you would like to change your password. So I'm just going to go back here to the door system settings to talk about something. So in this scenario that I mentioned, using extension numbers, this is for the scenario when you have the GDS and you have an IP PBX and then you have another video phone. For the scenario where you have only the GDS and then another phone and you don't have an IP PBX, for this case, you can use what we call IP calls. For example, I have a GXV phone that has this IP 192.168.22.76. You can call that phone even if it doesn't have an extension registered to a SIP server. So what you're going to need to do is just type in the IP address and make sure which account you would like to call. For example, this phone, I think it has account 1 used for something else. Yeah, it has account 1 used, so you would like to call in. So every time you press the doorbell, you would like to call the GXV on the second line. You can actually set that one to active, then include the IP address of the GDS. So this way you create a peer-to-peer connection between this phone and the GDS. The GDS by default is listening on port 5060, so you don't have to add it. But you need to go to the phone and make sure what is the local SIP port. So this one is using 5062, so I'm just going to go back to the GDS, include the IP address of the GXV phone, and then paste the port 5062. So by using this configuration, every time someone presses the button, the doorbell button, it's going to call this number. Even if there is no IP PBX in your network, it's going to call it using the IP address. And as I mentioned earlier, for that option, the peer-to-peer or the direct IP call to work, you need to have, or you must have that one checked. If you have it unchecked, it's not going to work for you. So we're going to jump into the video and audio settings of the GDS. These are the profiles. You remember when we were at the live view and we had these icons for stream 1, stream 2, and stream 3, you actually change and you configure those streams from the video settings. So each one of them is using a different profile. For example, I would like the stream 1 to use a high profile, which has a high resolution, 1920 by 1080, and then stream 2, you can assign it the main profile, and then the third stream, for example, you can give it a baseline, which has a lower resolution. So this is pretty much where you configure all the parameters for the streams, like the video streams. The OSD card, for example, this is where you do your OSD basically stands for on-screen display. In the case where you have multiple GDS in your network and you're monitoring those GDS devices and you would like to know which one is which, you can actually assign it a name. If I have this one in the front door, I can just type in front door and tell it to display the text, save and apply. So if I go to the live video, it's going to show me the front door. I misspelled door, sorry. So this is how you can assign a text or name device to each video. So when you see the video, you would know from which GDS this capture was taken from. And then you have some other options here for the CMOS settings. Dorothy already mentioned about this one, if you would like to enable it or disable it. For example, if I disable the LDC, it's going to show up this way. It's like the video streaming is going to be different. It's going to be 180 by 150. To put it back, just make sure you check on. The audio settings, this is for the audio. You can increase the volume, decrease the volume. The only codecs that we support on the GDS is the PCMU or the G711 ULO or G711 ALO, and then the last one we support is G722. For the alarm configuration, this is where you configure the alarm. The alarm basically is based on detection, motion detection. You can select the region that you would like to apply motion detection. For example, if I'm interested only in that corner, I can just choose that corner and then choose which alarm schedule and which profile. The profile and the schedule, you configure them under the alarm schedule and profile. Let's say I have that one configured. Choose the profile 1. So the first thing I need to do, configure a schedule for the motion detection. You can select the days, the time. So once you have those configured, then you can go to the alarm action. For example, I'm using profile 1. I can call it motion detection. And then you have 6 actions that you can choose from. When there is a motion detection, what do you want the GDS to do? You have those options. Upload to alarm center so that it can send a call to the alarm center, or you can send a voice alarm to a SIP phone. That means if the motion detection takes place, the GDS actually is going to call the SIP extension, then it's going to play alarm knowing that there is a motion detection. You can actually send an email or sound an alarm, or send the alarm to another alarm output like a siren, or you can just simply upload a JPEG. So once you create the profile and the schedule, you can just come back here again, choose the region, and choose schedule 1 and which profile you want. And about the phones, for example, that one when I said this option, let me go back here quickly, to voice to a SIP phone. This is where you enter the phones that you want the GDS to call. Just click add and then start adding all the phone numbers or the extensions. The email settings and the FTP. Of course, you need to configure the GDS with an email account so that it's able to send emails to your email. For example, if you're using Gmail accounts, you can just include smtp, gmail.com. If you're using plain SMTP, it's 25. If you're using SSL, of course, you need to change the port to 465. Enter your email address and password and the rest of the information. For the FTP server, the same thing. Just choose FTP and then include the IP address, the port, and in which folder you would like to store this recordings and information. Then you have the maintenance. This is where you do the upgrade and upload configuration to the GDS. You can actually reboot and do factory reset to the GDS from this web interface. You can do a debug log for syslog. And next I'm gonna, just to confirm one more time, you can actually just use the web interface to manage the GDS, and you can do all the configuration from the GDS web GUI. But in case you have multiple GDS and you want to manage them all, you can go to the Grandstream website and then just download the GDS manager. It's right here, just click on it. It's a package. So when you install it, it's going to provide you with 2 folders. One of them is the GDS manager and the other one is GDS server. Before you run the GDS manager, always make sure the GDS server is up and running first. So just make sure you run the GDS manager, the GDS server first, let it run, and then go ahead and open the GDS server. Then it's going to ask you for the IP. The IP that you include in here, actually, that's the IP of the GDS server, which is usually the IP address of your computer. So when you open GDS, it's going to show you the IP. If you want to get it from your computer, just put the IP config command to get the IP address of your computer and just put it in there, and then we'll be able to log in to the GDS manager and manage all the devices from that tool. And I think we've covered most of the stuff. I mean, for detailed information, you can always go and read the user manual of the GDS, or in case you need assistance, you can call us at the technical support, and we'll be, of course, glad to help you configure the GDS and help you with the different implementation scenarios.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Abdel. So we're all done with the technical portion, but we can open it up now to the question and answer session. So for anyone who has any questions for us, please submit them using the chat feature on the right-hand side of your web browser. So if it's questions that are related to sales, we can have Youleidy assist from VoIP Supply, and if it's something more technical, we can help you on the Grandstream side. So feel free to start sending in your questions through the chat feature, and we'll go ahead and start answering them. So give you guys a few more minutes to start submitting your questions. But we've got one more question here. So anybody else, keep them coming as well. So the question we have is whether Grandstream is going to make a model that does not have a keypad. At this time, we do not have any plans for that. However, I'll be sure to pass that along to our product development team, as this is the first device of its kind to our product line, so I'll definitely suggest that. But at this time, we do not have a plan for that.
How do you open the door from the inside? I'm not sure I understand it, but I'm just going to give you an example just to make sure that's what you're asking. For example, if there's a friend of yours coming to the gate and then he calls you, hey, I'm at the gate, can you open the gate? Actually, that's possible. That person can call into the GDS. The GDS is going to auto-answer automatically. Then they can include the password to unlock the door from inside, so without you having to go to the gate and open it with the PIN number. And this is the option, by the way, that I was talking to you about right here under the whitelist. This is where you include the phones or the extensions that can call the GDS from inside and open the door using the DTMF codes.
So the next question is, when are our cameras going to have IR? Some of our cameras already do, so feel free to go on grandstream.com. Most of our cameras are day and night, outdoor, indoor cameras that do feature infrared already. If you're referring to when the GDS3710 will have infrared, we do not plan on this at this time, yeah, so with our door cameras, we don't plan to add infrared at this time, but of course I can suggest that to our product team.
You can use a third-party device.
Yeah. And yes, of course, as Abdel mentioned, you can use third-party devices to pair with the GDS3710.
For the next question, the RFID card readers, we don't have anyone that we could recommend for you, but as long as it supports the Wigan connector, it should work with the GDS, no problems. I mean, we don't keep track of the list of those readers that we have tested. Probably in the future we can have it as a list of all those compatible readers, but for now we just don't have it.
Wonderful, thank you. The next question is the in-wall mount a separate accessory? Yes, it is separate. You can purchase that from your Grandstream distributor. So of course VoIP Supply can assist you with ordering an in-wall mount if you need one with your GDS3710. All right. Now we have a little bit of a explanation to that last question, so if you want to go ahead and grab that.
When someone leaves the building, the door needs to unlock to allow them to leave. That's occur without the user and access. I mean, I think I understand what you're saying. This depends on the type of the lock that you're using. For example, with the GDS, you can use two types. They call them fail-safe and then fail-secure. For fail-safe, that's the one when, for example, there is no power or anything, the lock is just going to open. If you're using the fail-safe electric lock, that one, when there is no power, is just going to remain locked. So this is something that's related to the type of electric lock that you're going to be using. Yeah, the magnetic lock, I think that one is a fail-safe because it uses power to have this magnetic power. So that one is a they call them fail-safe, which means when there is no power, it's just going to unlock automatically. Just a question about the web browser, which one do we recommend? As I mentioned, the Chrome and the Firefox, they disable the option, the API, which allows you to stream videos. For the webinar today, I used the SeaMonkey. It's called SeaMonkey, in case you would like to use it. There are multiple web browsers right there, but I've been using that one and it's been reliable. So if you would like to use it, I would recommend go with the SeaMonkey as the web browser. The question about if an IR sensor can be used with the GDS to unlock the door, definitely you can use it. I'm going to show you exactly where you can do that. It's under the alarm events config. Once you connect the IR sensor to the GDS, you're just going to need to come here, then you start doing your configuration. If you would like, for example, when it detects a person using the infrared sensor, you can tell the GDS, for example, to open the door. This is one of the options available, which means that's possible. You can actually do that.
It looks like our questions have kind of dwindled down. So just wanted to thank Youleidy very much from VoIP Supply for having us today. And of course, thank you to Abdel.
Thank you, Grandstream, also.
Yep, and so again, if you have any sales questions, VoIP Supply can absolutely help you with that. If you have any technical questions, please feel free to reach out to Grandstream. So thank you again, everyone, for attending, and have a great afternoon.